cheeky game. Donald says I wear the suits, style with ties and gold boots. Joe says I got that flair, rainbow ties and silver hair. Who's more gay? Who's more gay? Donald and Joe, they sway, swagging in their own way. Who's more gay? Who's more gay? Donald says my golf is neat, swinging clubs out in the heat. Joe chuckles and turns around, dancing moves right to the ground. Who's more gay? Who's more gay? Donald and Joe, they sway, swagging in their own way. Who's more gay? Who's more gay? Donald says my golf is neat, swinging clubs out in the heat. Joe chuckles and turns around, dancing moves right to the ground. Who's more gay? Who's more gay? Donald and Joe, they sway. Pink tux or rainbow pin, battling smiles and cheeky grins. This mad caper's just for fun, laughing till the day is done. Day's for gay.
You're fired.
Pride, greed, wrath, envy, lust, gluttony, and slothfulness. Anytime you ever see any investigation where there were criminals charged or criminals at a high level of a corporation that were forced to step down or whatever, or you see any politicians that were caught up in scandals, you see anything like that, I don't think I've ever seen one where one or all of these were not at the core of the issue. That's why they call it the 7 deadly sins. It'll lead to your personal death, and if you're leading a whole country, it'll lead to the death of the country. And if everybody in the country is falling prey to that, to the extent that they fall prey to that, it's to that extent that the country falls apart. I mean, I guess that would be what you'd call corruption, right?
Yeah, I think we as a nation would see basically the symptoms of that change with obviously an individual level, but we also, when was the last time we had a servant leader?
Right.
When was the last time that and you guys might not even know that term. When did we have someone that leads by serving? Food for thought. Do you think Joe Biden's alive?
Please.
Is that a yes or a no?
That's classified.
It's classified information. So the real question that's on my mind right now is, where is President Biden? And I've seen more and more articles coming out even asking the question, is he alive? And I want to dive into that, Josh, but just off the cuff, what do you think? Put the tinfoil hat on, let's hear it.
Tinfoil hat. So, biggest tinfoil hat theory is they always talk about how when one party decides to accuse you of something, it's probably what they're guilty of.
Right.
And then we see that one guy gets almost assassinated, the other one disappears. So if I was going full tinfoil hat, I would think there's a connection.
I would think there's a coup. Right off the bat, I would connect the dots and be like, you know what, there's a coup. Yeah, you're not wrong. President Trump, he tries to get off. He was supposed to be dead by all meanings of the word assassinate. Like, they had the intention of killing him, whoever they is. And now with President Biden being totally MIA, dropping out of the race, there's a lot of strange things, but we're gonna dive into that a little bit. This is a different flavor of video. Obviously, we've never done something like this. We've never thrown together a musical compilation, a parody kind of thing. But I think it's important, and there's a lot of stuff hidden in the funny video that you created, along with the lyrics and the song itself. So before we even get into that, let's preface how we came about that song. We used AI. So I want you to think about that for a second. All I did is pull up an app on my phone, and I typed in Donald Trump and Joe Biden argue over who's more gay. That's it. Literally, those are the only words that I put into the AI prompt. It kicked out some lyrics. We used the app to put that to music and stuff, and it created that song. So now rewatch that song and listen to the lyrics, and you really start to realize how hilarious that is. So what did that show to you, Josh, knowing that AI created that? What were your thoughts around the lyrics?
Well, first off, the fact that there's multiple different instruments going on, there's a clear hook, it's actually catchy, there's a voice with lyrics, and it's totally understandable, like way more understandable than Joe Biden. And it was all done by AI.
And it took 30 seconds.
And yeah, like, they talk about deep fake videos and all that stuff and all those conspiracy theories around that. And then you get something like this that you literally just put a prompt in your phone and it came back with that in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That's interesting.
It's an interesting age that we live in. And to Josh's point, one of the things that I just wanted to discuss in this video is the fact that when there's an opposition force, when somebody is trying to take something forcefully or change the direction of culture, take politics, for example, the politicians will tell you exactly what they're doing, but what they do is deflect the charges to the other side.
Right. Projection.
And it's like when I hear someone say, it's a threat to our democracy. When I hear like a hardcore progressive say it's a threat to our democracy, they are not lying, because their form of democracy is threatened when things don't go their way. But that's the interesting wordplay. Is they're not talking about our republic. They're talking about their democracy. And frankly, I don't want any of their democracy. I want this republic. And one thing that I think is becoming more and more abundantly clear over the last couple weeks, to me, is how much is manufactured to speak a certain message to effect a certain change. That has become so clear to me. And I think people right now are going to say, oh, do you think the assassination was manufactured? Or was it a deep fake? And to be honest, I don't. Like, somebody manufactured it. Somebody created the...
Yeah, it was either a coup or it was allowed to happen, one of the two. That's pretty clear at this point.
Yeah.
At the very least, there was neglect enough to let it happen.
Yeah. So knowing that we're in sort of a clown world, I always use that as the phrase, we're in a clown world. It feels like we're in a simulation. Like we've heard that before, because things happen in such a comical order that you would have to either be completely incompetent or you would have to plan it out to a T. And I feel like it's one of those two things.
Yeah.
So let's start out kind of, or did you have another thought with that?
Well, I kind of had a thought. It kind of occurred to me the other day. Like, it seems like anytime you see anything that goes mainstream, it goes viral, it's either, and if it's like news related, it's always one of two things. It's either actually the truth, or it's a classical use of irony, which is defined by literally the opposite of what is expected, or opposite of what is true.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's always, I don't know, I could be wrong, but it seems like there's been very few instances where it was anywhere in between. It's always either right or completely inverted of reality.
Yeah. And I think, just looking at the election, for example, there's a lot of that I feel is being applied into both candidates. And I say candidates with quotey fingers because I don't even know what to think about it. I don't know what to think about this election. I don't know what to think about the assassination attempt. I don't know what to think about Biden being completely missing right now. I don't know what to think about Kamala Harris being the elect. You know, one thing that I think is fascinating is when you hear these hardcore far left people saying our democracy, their democracy is what exactly just happened, where the candidate that was selected in primaries now steps back, and the people's vote that they cast for that person is thrown out the window, and you guys that are Democrat in your mindset, which again, I hate the two boxes, I think it's kind of stupid, but this is what you're left with. You're left with Kamala Harris. Like, what?
So how did the last election go when she was running against Joe Biden? How'd that turn out again?
It didn't turn out too well.
Like she loses by a landslide in the primaries. Then he picks her as VP, and people were kind of like, that sucks, but he's still our guy. He's going to beat Trump. He gets in, all this happens. Now he steps down after being the forerunner for their side. And the only person left to run, like the only hope that they have after setting this whole stage up, is the one that is like the least popular, and everybody like.
So let me ask you a question, and this is what I wrestle with, because I've got a lot of friends that are saying the responsibility falls on us as people. We have to go vote, we have to show up, we have to own these local elections, we have to hold local people accountable, then you got the state, and then you've got the federal. And we start looking at that statement. And I've been very critical of that lately, saying anyone that points the finger and says, did you do your part? What are you doing? What are you doing to fix the republic? And I step back and I'm like, we can barely afford to feed our families, okay?
Right.
We can barely afford to even do anything outside of just provide. You know, when I look at my position and what our team does, we do try to pour back into the culture, but even that's limited with what we can do at any given time. And so all these people that point at other people and say, well, did you run for office? Did you email your local representative? Did you call them? Did you show up? Did you create a rally? How much of that actually changes anything? And I think that's an overwhelming question that people sit here and stew over, and I wonder about it all the time. And when I hear people, I feel like it's a very idealistic perception of what this republic would be, is that, oh, all you have to do is vote smart. And
Yeah.
I think you should vote because it takes no effort. We talked about this yesterday. It's like, it's kind of lazy not to vote. And I think there's a benefit in having a record and being able to say that you did. But propaganda and billions of dollars going together literally can completely sway public perception, even against reality. Look at genders, guys, for real. Just look at that. If they can make you believe that there's not just a man and a woman, that there's 75,000 different variations in between, what can't they make us believe?
Right.
So when I think of that and I hear people that I care about and I have a lot of respect for say, basically vote harder or run for office. That's my favorite one. Run for office. I agree, in a world that is not literally propagated with false narratives and money laundering from politicians, but I struggle with this.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I mean, it's the only other option is they always say you vote with your dollars and stuff like that. That's the voting that you do in between the elections. And that's true. But then you got the whole, like, all the imperial structures of corporations that used to be called governments. Now they're called big corporations. Like, there's a lot going on. That's like, what is the right answer? The only thing, like, really, like, it literally comes down to, in my mind, the only thing that you can, like, no one person can have the effect that's needed to do this. It takes every individual person working in tandem with each other. And that's where, you know, you get into the religious side of things with, like, the Holy Spirit and all that stuff. Like, that's kind of a similar effect of what that does. Like, when everyone gets on the same page, acting in the same spirit, the same mood, the same whatever kind of word you want to put on that. That's the only thing I've been able to come up with in my mind as a possible glimpse of hope.
Some kind of consistent foundation. We've talked about that a lot. That's why we came up with the 7 F's and said, look, everybody can rally behind those 7 things.
Right.
And if we rally behind those 7 things, sure, there's some different interpretations, but in order for a culture to actually exist, to have that word culture, there has to be something agreed upon. And I feel like that's the fracture of this nation, is we don't even agree upon the Bill of Rights, the natural laws. We don't even believe in any of that foundation that used to at least be understood and agreed upon to build off of from there. But dude, then I look at this clown show that elections are. I look at the intentional divisiveness. I look at the fact that everyone that runs is old, decrepit. They're not the best and brightest. Like, I don't like the term best and brightest. I feel like it gets overused, but they're not. They're not the smartest. They're not the ones that have accomplished the most. They're not the ones with pure hearts and intentions and minds. They are not examples of excellence. Now, you could look at Trump, and I know a lot of diehard Trump supporters can be like, well, he's a billionaire, he has a successful business. There at least is a track record there of that. But most of the politicians we get are career politicians that get backed by these super PACs, all of these lobby groups. They get all this money, and then in order for them to be reelected, they have to toe the line of whatever leadership there is. And I think that's the most frustrating part to me. And seeing this election come around all over again, and seeing how it looks like an intentional coup, how it looks like another power grab. It reminds me of the COVID time period, but they're far less obvious. Like during COVID, they were like, you will obey.
Right.
It was as obvious as you could get, you will obey. Now, it's subtle.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about that.
It's mind games. It is clear, at least to me, that there are groups of people at various levels of society that are pulling the strings for all this, that have all the cameras, all the guns, all the everything, and they're very skilled at swaying minds. They know how people think, they know how your biological clock ticks, they know how to manipulate language in ways that make you feel good when they want you to feel good or feel distressed. Even if, like, that's the thing too, is like they don't just try to piss you off. Like they make you feel distressed in a very strategic way.
I think people forget that, and we have some blogs on like the origins of propaganda, and you have some good writing on the Exodus Company's website. So if you want to go back to sort of the origins of that and some stories over history, I'd recommend you read Josh's blogs on the Exodus Company's site. And we have more planned as we turn that podcast back on and really start doing that later this year. There's more and more planned, but you are constantly being marketed to. And the crime that I see is, it happens, I mean, it even happens for companies like us. We market to you guys to show our products and to help impact culture, but you're being marketed by companies, and the crime that we have been taught is that you're not being marketed to by politics. That, you know, marketing is to sell you a product. But when it comes to the direction of the country, you're the product or the byproduct of whatever else they decide to do. And I think that's the danger, is that when we don't recognize that we're the product, and that either it's going to go down a negative path or it's going to go down a positive path, and we don't accept the fact that just simple psychology, simple marketing can completely sway the public opinion. And then you couple into that whole fact, and where I refute my friends that say you can just vote your way out of this, and I'm going to be clear, I'm going to say something that's very edgy, but it happens in every single government, in every single nation. At some point, you shoot your way out of it. That's it. It always comes down to the point where guns come out and you fight. And this republic will be no different. Now, I'd like it to be different. I think it would be great to just raise my family and be left alone, but I don't believe that that's gonna happen. But I refute the fact that all you have to do is vote harder, when the same people that are getting us involved in these wars are the same people that are making money off of the wars, are the same people that are lobbying Congress to pass the laws and enforce the laws, and they're the same exact people that own the social media companies and the media outlets. And I'm not saying that it's all one CEO, I'm saying they have stocks invested in these things. They have a vested interest in seeing this nation fall in a way that we can't comprehend, because we just want to be left alone. And when you back that up, when the public square is controlled, and now you can funnel billions into it, and you control the narrative, and you can place the people in front that are the figureheads of speech, like, that feels like we're coming to a Hunger Games era, where we're just going to be fighting over food, and the whole time the enemy is us, right, and what we perceive. But the enemy is a small, very small group of people, and people write it off. It's super frustrating. You know, I got people I really respect that will not even for a moment believe that there are people that are very calculated and have a lot of money and interest in this nation not becoming free. Sorry, that was a rampage.
No, that's true. I mean, there's something a little bit left field coming to my mind when you're saying all that, because with the falling out of the assassination attempt thing.
Yeah.
Secret Service is under the microscope now. It was interesting to me that, one, they pretty much left local police to most of the Secret Service responsibilities. And when it failed, their initial response was, well, we tasked local police with this and that. Think back a few years ago, defund the police, that was all local level. Nobody ever said defund the FBI. Nobody said defund the Secret Service, defund ATF. Those chants were missing. But defund local police and local sheriffs and all that stuff, that was all the raid. And now it's like
Now they became
the top
fall.
guys are the ones saying it. Like, that's interesting to me.
It is interesting.
So why is it that local police are being more forthcoming than our actual
Well,
government?
this is why they defunded the police in the first place. It's not because they're against police. They seek a police state. They're against anybody with guns they can't control. That's why they're trying to take your AR. I mean, that's the way to
The
understand
goal of
it.
defund the police is a national police force,
Of course.
eventually.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how that played out. It's fascinating to see the holes in the stories. You know, I'll put it this way. There's also people that I respect. Take law enforcement, for example. There are people involved in law enforcement at a very high level that help direct the training and the standards for law enforcement that don't speak up. They won't stand up for the republic or the citizens. They'll just stay quiet and follow suit. So, yeah, I don't know. I just sit here frustrated wondering, what the heck do we even do?
Yeah.
But I think that's the broader question that's at hand. And, you know, frankly, us watching the whole first debate, that led to why we even created the song and did the whole thing anyway,
Right.
because it's like,
It was a circus.
it was a total circus. This is not at all an image of a strong nation. And I think that that's what really further drives me nuts, is if you want America to be a strength and superpower, it has to be taken seriously. And
I think individuals really need, especially right now, to start questioning what are your ethics, what are your standards, and where are the lines drawn? Because I think a lot of that, going back to the police officers that don't speak up, the ones that do the training, all that stuff, I'm quite certain a lot of it has to do with they don't speak because it's not professional, or it's not like there's this line where it's like, well, you don't bash them if you don't know what's going on and all that stuff.
yeah,
Then it's like, well, where is that line drawn? Because at a certain point, you cross the threshold where now you're standing in the way of justice being done. When the Justice Department's not doing their job, and they haven't been for decades, probably, definitely years. There's a certain line where it's like, all right, and you need to know where that line is, otherwise you will have crossed that line so far to where you realize you made a mistake after you're so far past the line it can't be undone. I think that's kind of the story of history, honestly. Humans doing that over and over again. So we need to know, we need to understand where are our lines drawn, what are the ethics we want to stand on, and individuals need to firm themselves up in that en masse.
So do you think that the Republic can correct course? I wrestle with that question.
I think it would take a miracle. Because at this point, we're in the crosshairs. That bullet is flying. Like, think about that. He would have had to, so back to the assassination thing, because I think that it's a perfect allegory for what's going on right now, too. My first reaction was, that's all false. It didn't actually happen. And then,
Yeah.
like an hour later, I was like, okay, apparently it actually did happen. This was definitely staged. Then the more I watch it, the more I've seen the initial footage, reports, all that stuff. Like, that bullet got so close, and it was literally in the air, and he just turned just enough and then stopped for it to go past his cheek, hit his ear, and not go through his brain.
Yeah.
Like, that's not, I don't care how professional you are, how good you are, you can't stage that part of it.
No. Yeah,
Whoever was taking that shot was trying to take him out,
right.
regardless of the rest of the plan.
And there's a lot of that started to make sense after the fact, you know.
Yeah.
Whether or not there's one shooter, two shooters, I don't know.
I think that's where the Republic is right now as a whole.
Yeah.
I think
We have
the
a
bullet
bullet.
is in the air, and it's going to literally take God turning our head just enough to get us out of the death zone. And if God is real, that's probably what's going to happen. And it will be very plain to everybody on a very real level. But I don't know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think kind of wrapping this out, I'd like to give people something. Something to walk away with and say,
hat off.
And say, what can we do? What can we as people do? I think that if we are in alignment with our values, and we are speaking truth and pursuing truth, we're drawing our lines in the sands, we're building our communities, we're equipping each other and prepping, like not in the weird prepper way. There's aspects of that we do, but I'm saying preparing to fight propaganda with truth by being physically present in our communities, doing things that you can't deny. I also think praying for this nation is critically important. I think that there's a lot of evil that exists within mankind. In our leadership, there's a lot of selfishness and just a desire to take and pillage and control. And one of the things that I would love to see our nation do is move away from that desire to just control and move into an area of ultimate accountability, liberty, freedom. But I don't even know what that looks like at this point. You know, I use the example of try to do anything in your life. See if there's a regulation or a tax attached to it.
Right.
What a hypocrisy this republic is. And it's really hard to to sit back and be like, vote.
Right.
But I mean, what do you think what can we do? What should people take away from the events of the last couple weeks?
Take responsibility. Own yourself. Own your life. You don't do that. Plato, I can't remember the exact quote, but Plato said something very similar to that basically to whatever degree you don't own yourself, something will own you.
So I'm curious what you guys think. I would love to engage with a conversation down in the comments. I would love to know what your take is on the whole assassination attempt of President Trump. I'd love to hear what you think about where President Biden is, the whole dropout of the race. I mean, frankly, we talked about that for months, that there's no way Biden makes it to the election. Like, that's been a conversation that many people have been having because you could tell the dude was being pulled around, literally being pulled around places. And, you know, you either want a strong nation that's morally and ethically grounded or you don't. It's the same thing with the force of control. Like it's there or it's not. You're either going to be moving towards it or you're moving away from it. And I don't think any of us are going to debate that we're moving away from it. So that's my challenge to everybody here is let's engage in a conversation, but at some point talk is cheap. And it's time to really start looking at ourselves and to Josh's point saying, how can we become better on our own individual level? Yes, go out and vote. Do I think that you should show up at your town hall and voice your concerns? Yes. Do I think that that matters? No, I do not. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. And I wish that I didn't feel like that, but I've been alive long enough now and analyzed this long enough to know what politicians do in this nation. They drag us into endless wars. They spend billions of dollars to just line their pockets. DoD defense contractors, everybody doing business with the government, they're all the same. Everybody wants the war, and they want the pillaging, and they want the control. And in order to get money, we're willing to sacrifice liberties, freedoms. We're willing to accept Patriot Acts. We're willing to fund wars that we shouldn't be involved in. And at the same time, propping up literal pedophiles the whole time to gain more and more power, more and more control. And it's really frustrating. But work on ourselves first.
Basic problem comes down to greed. And that is something that everybody's guilty of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's these sins, if you want to call them that, these missteps that, tighten up.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed the funny music video. We had a little bit of humor at the beginning. We wrapped it up on a more serious note, but guys, here's my plea to you. I'm asking you to help me understand how we can help you. And I think that that's something that over the past years we've done sometimes well, but sometimes I've dropped the ball on that. Just asking you guys what you need. I'm not on this video trying to sell you products. I want to figure out a way that we can help you to become better as a husband, father, as a mother, a daughter, as just a citizen of this nation, part of your local community. How can we help you? Let us know down in the comments. And as always, guys, our email is always open. I know that it's there for customer service things, but please just communicate with us. That is info@tatargets.com. Check that out. And please send us your ideas. Let's get involved in the conversation. Engage in the comment section. Share the video with somebody that needs to start out with a laugh, end with mild depression, and and hopefully understand that we're not alone. What you're feeling, what I'm feeling, what you're feeling, Josh, is not a left-right issue. This is a national identity issue inside of our republic. I think it's going to take a lot more than voting. But do you have anything else to add here at the end?
Like I said, we need to take responsibility. That's the best way we can fix it. Be responsible for your own life.
It starts with you. See you guys in the next one.
Going a debate, sparks fly in this funny fate. Who's more gay? They start to claim this race. They play a cheeky game. Donald says I win.